Buckle up for a new episode of Bumpaholics, the one and only podcast made to teach on all stages of the arrival of a baby, before, during, and after. Whether you're an expecting mother, have questions about fertility, difficulty with lactation, or postpartum, you're sure to learn from our experienced doulas when you listen to Bumpaholics.
Yep, I should have been turning this on while you were talking. Okay, so that was chapter 9. Chapter 10, yeah, these are all really short chapters, which is why we're doing so many of them at once. I'm going to read a quote. I am on a Kindle. So for me, it's LOC 881 because for some reason, this particular book won't give me a page option. Other books do, not this one. I have no idea. If you are on a Kindle, we are on LOC 881. If you are in a book, we're in chapter 10. Okay. Long before I started showing, Thor in my uterus took over my dantian, which is a Tai Chi term. Their three-way symbiosis guiding my Tai Chi body. They anchored me confidently as I lifted one leg, then the other, so my thigh was parallel to the floor before my shins slowly kicked forward and returned, with arms extended generously to the sides. Golden Rooster stands on one leg. My Tai Chi instructor noticed, though I said nothing. Dawn was nicknamed Dental John by my sister, who had come to visit a couple of years earlier and tagged along to a Tai Chi class. When Dawn speaks, the words come slow, soft, but assured, as if they've been through a course of Tai Chi themselves. You're moving differently, Dawn said. When I was about 5 months pregnant, your Tai Chi has improved so vastly over the last month. It's startling. It's the pregnancy, I said. There's a living critter in my dantian. It's a completely different kind of energy, which I thought was really interesting. Skipping a little bit down, with a smile and a nod, he welcomed the baby womb diaton collaboration to class. The baby womb diaton collaboration that kept me perfectly in balance as I lifted my right leg and twirled, which I thought was really, really interesting. And this is toward the end of my pregnancy. Thor wanted to do aquasize even more than he wanted to do Tai Chi. And since the meeting times overlapped, I went to aquasize instead. So really, really interesting to think about the pregnant body and connecting to it better and actually getting better balance, better centerization on yourself when you're pregnant if you take the time to really connect with your baby and your like how that connects with your body and its changes. Did you have any similar experiences when you were pregnant?
I can't say that I had such a beautiful experience as that one.
Well, our hips are unfriendly to us, you and I. Our pregnancies, our hips are like, just kidding. And they just.
It's like, you just sit down and rest, honey.
Yeah, I aquasized the whole birth, the whole pregnancy. That would be a really interesting birth. I mean, I do it in the water, so I guess.
Yeah, I was always very much, I want to be in this almost zero gravity environment of being completely submerged in water 24/7.
Yeah, lifting.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I always tried to do meditation practice where I would be able to kind of connect with baby before baby's born, and like kind of just help to build that relationship, kind of like talking to baby and kind of refamiliarizing myself with my body that is ever changing. But it was never so graceful as what she described.
I have had clients that remain active throughout pregnancy And it is and isn't recommended based on what type of exercise that you're doing. So I really commend her for doing exercise in the water. Is fantastic for your joints, for your, body being filled with relaxin and all kinds of other things that are going on with you when you're in your late pregnancy. So that is awesome. It's really good to exercise in water. It is really good to exercise when you're pregnant. It's always good to meditate, but yeah, when you're pregnant, that is amazing to be able to do and just connect with your baby and just check in on how they're doing. I thought it was amazing that he actually helped her gain balance, because that was not my experience. And I haven't had any clients say that they have better balance while pregnant. I have clients that are retained some level of balance, but never gotten better before. So that was a new one for me.
I mean, I guess I can see the perspective if you are like centering yourself based off of like the baby in your uterus being like your center. I can see how that theoretically would have a balancing effect. Yeah. I haven't seen it in practice, but I mean, it did like sound super awesome that was the case for her.
Yeah, exactly. It sounded amazing for her. This is definitely not my experience. If anybody else has experienced this or knows someone who has experienced this, let me know, because I want to know about it. I want to know how to achieve this. Teach others.
Yeah. I'd like to talk to anybody who has had this experience, because it sounds awesome.
Yeah. So what I read to you was the end of chapter 10. These chapters are so short. So even though we're doing so many chapters, this is going to be a really short book club. So we're on chapter 11, booking it. Okay. Lisa describes the casualness of home birth prenatals, basically talking about how she's kind of running the show and the midwife listens to what she has to say. And there's no like crinkly paper, like we're in a hospital kind of feel or a clinic. It's very friendly and casual, really. Do you remember the descriptions of it? Do they sound pretty familiar to your home birth prenatals, or what did yours look like?
Yeah, I mean, all of my home birth prenatals were they were at the midwife's office, but it was still like a very homey environment. There's one that's like at your home at 36 weeks. It's the home visit, but it is nice to just like, no crinkly paper. It does feel a lot more low key and relaxed, and like you can just have a conversation. Because I have had like my first, it was with a midwife, but it was with a hospital midwife, and so I went to an office that was very much like an OB's office, because there was OBs there too. Right. And that felt very much like any other kind of medical appointment you might have, where you come in and you just like, here are the main points, let's check your vitals and see you later type of thing. Where like the home birth midwives specifically, and I mean some hospital midwives spend more time on your appointments too. It kind of just depends who you're working with, but with the home birth midwives there, in my experience, have been a lot more. They'll check on your mental health as well as what's going on with you physically, because a lot of, related to. It's very much you are in charge of your medical decisions. You are like, they'll give you information and then ask you what you want to do. Whereas like a lot of times in a clinic or medical office, they'll like, okay, this is the information and this is what we should do. And they just are going to assume that you're going to do what their recommendation is, and they word it in a way that doesn't really leave you to feel like you have choices, even though you do. And that,
yeah, I agree. I also had a home birth and a hospital birth with hospital midwives. But I think at my home birth, I know that my home birth was a little bit different from what most home births experience, because my home birth midwife was trained in a hospital. So she did things very clinically. So this was actually not my experience. We met in an office and she sat on one side of the desk and I sat on the other, and went over questions, and she had checklists, and I didn't know the difference. But so I actually, but I did get to know her really well because I always met with her every time. Versus when I went to the hospital, I had to meet all the midwives that were all on rotating call. So that was a little bit different. But other than that, my meetings with them were actually really similar, which is okay. But I really did enjoy reading about her prenatals at home, because obviously I don't go to the prenatals with my clients that are doing home births, other than my sisters when she would invite me, which was always really fun. She took me to a few just because I want to learn. But
party.
Right, exactly. I have gone to prenatals with some of my clients for doctors that are pushing for things that my clients are uncomfortable with, and they just want me to come and honestly, mostly just sit there and ask the right questions. A lot of times just my presence apparently changes the atmosphere. I don't know, because I don't know what it's like when I'm not there. So based on their words, but it was really lovely to read, and it seems like a really friendly and communal experience. It looked really nice. Yeah, they were. Okay, cool. Awesome. Happy to hear it. Okay, so then Lisa then describes being written off by medical professionals after she lost Thor because she had a home birth. So I am going to read an excerpt, LOC 942, if you care to check it out, starting on paragraph 2. And I would like for you to think of, if you were her doula and you were attending this appointment with her, how might you respond to this interaction? What kind of advocacy, if any, do you think would have been good, or even like as a partner attending this? Okay. She said, "Does recent onset mean during labor? I asked the doctor at the reproductive clinic 2 months after the stillbirth. He was a pale man with thin lips and a tight voice who avoided eye contact. Or does recent onset mean within the last few days? That is, I thought but didn't ask. Might an ultrasound have picked it up? We don't even know for sure that there was a placental abruption," he shrugged, uninterested in the questions of a woman so unwise as to have chosen home birth. "Can't tell from this report. We'd have induced 7 days post-date." What do you think of that conversation?
Yeah, that it's a very dismissive attitude that gosh, how to advocate in that situation. I would probably have, I mean, I kind of just want to have an attitude. But, excuse me, sir. Yeah.
I want to call his attention.
It's like, that it's like, what can you tell her about what happened? I mean, just because you would have done something differently doesn't mean that she doesn't deserve to have the answers that we are able to give her.
Yeah. In situations like this, it is really hard not to have a bit of an attitude, for sure. If I feel a client being dismissed, especially on something so important, it is really, really hard to not, get a little sassy, this is rude. And when people are rude, sometimes it's hard not to be rude back. I don't know how she responded, because that is also the way that the chapter ends. I'm enjoying quoting the ends of these chapters, apparently. But I think that in this situation, what I probably would have done is to say, basically what you said is, okay, well then what can we tell from that? What kinds of, because she needs an end to this story, right? That's what all human beings, we need in order for closure. We need a plausible ending, or a few. Honestly, we can have closure if we have a few different options. So I would probably ask, and just very gently and kindly ask more questions, try to gather more information. And especially when she says that he is avoiding eye contact, I would probably force the eye contact. Him avoiding that eye contact is probably making it easier for him to humanize her. So just having a pretty professional but there attitude, where I'm just kind of forcing him to look me in the face, is probably what I would do, and then turn and make eye contact with her and kind of direct his eye contact toward her so that she gets eye contact and humanized in that way. She doesn't mention Glenn in here, so I don't know if he was there and just sitting quietly next to her, or if he didn't attend this particular meeting, but then toward him as well, if he was there. I think that is how I would handle it. It's not about like what you would do if you were in that situation. Do you feel like that would be enough for you, for somebody who was attending something like this with you?
I think that, like, if I was in her situation, I would be really grateful to have someone to just get him to look at me, really, to just be addressed as a person. I feel like that was like the most, like, from my perspective, I feel like that would be the most like the hardest part of that interaction would be is just being dismissed like that, and not having his full attention to even discuss concerns or my questions. So
yeah. So if anybody does find themselves in a situation where they're going to this type of meeting, and if you are a doula, you probably will end up in this type of meeting. These are important things to think about. What is your goal when you're going in? And for me, it would be to make sure, as always, that my client is feeling as respected as possible. which means they need to feel human, they need to feel heard, and they need answers. So pretty sure that that's what I would go with. I can't guarantee you that I wouldn't have some attitude though. I generally do pretty well, but I have a feeling that my emotions would be running high. So I'm not going to hold myself to the highest standards. I'm not going to lie and say 100% totally, always in control. Most of the time. Sometimes you get emotional.
Yeah, you get invested.
You do. You get very close with your clients.
The following media content is intended to only be an educational reference guide and should not be taken as a substitute for medical advice. While KC Women's Ministry adheres to strict self-set guidelines, any advice, instructions, or information found within this media is not intended to be a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. KCWM makes every effort to broadcast correct information. We simply present the views based on evidence-based information. We welcome any comments, suggestions, or correction of errors. We are not sponsored by drug or device companies. By listening or viewing this podcast, you agree not to use this podcast as medical advice to treat any medical condition in either yourself or others, including but not limited to patients that you are treating. Consult your own physician for any medical issues that you may be having. This entire disclaimer also applies to any guests or contributors to the podcast. Under no circumstances shall KC Women's Ministry, any guests or contributors to the podcast, or any employees, associates, or affiliates of KC Women's Ministry be responsible for damages arising from the use of the podcast. Viewer discretion is advised.